Uh, Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, I guess you can hear me. Can someone just confirm if they can hear me? Okay, thank you. Uh, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before we start the session, we'll start with Dua Hujjah, then we shall continue. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Welcome all to the second session and the last session of Should I Preserve My Khoja Heritage with Sheikh Kazim Bhojani. Inshallah, the session will end at 6:15 to 6:20, inshallah. Thank you all for your time, including Sheikh, to join us at this time. So, inshallah, Sheikh, I'll give you the ground, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, and let me start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So I welcome you all to this second session. The sessions were titled Should We Preserve Our Khoja Heritage or Not? Although I agree that so just a moment, I need to share my screen. Can I request the host to allow me to share the screen? It's saying that it's disabled by the host. Yeah, so basically we didn't go directly into the topic of preserving our Khoja heritage and the details of it. And I tried to very briefly mention yesterday that it's something that we need to discuss, and there are more fundamental matters that we need to discuss first before we can come to this conclusion of whether how we should preserve our Khoja heritage and in what sense, because it's very easy to just say that yes we should preserve it, and then we don't want to have the wrong meaning behind it. So that's why we had this discussion yesterday. In my opinion, it's a very important discussion that we need to engage ourselves with. We need to think about it as individuals, as community members, as even inshallah the leaders of the community in future. These are very very critical matters, so matters related to our identity and our future. And as I mentioned, that if these identities are not properly configured and we don't think about it and we go on an autopilot mode. So right now our community, in terms of its future and in terms of its identity, is on autopilot mode. No one is really taking any conscious efforts to talk about it and discuss it. We're just going by the flow. Okay, and it's a very risky thing to do. I showed glimpses of that if we are going to lose all our identities, Islamic identity is going to become weak, Khoja identity is going to become weak, African identity is going to become weak, then be ready for a disaster. And what will happen is that a very materialistic, individualistic identity will take its place, and then will just be nothing but just machines going after material pursuits, more money, more wealth, individual goals, not caring for others, not contributing to our society and your own community. And believe me, that's not a very good state to be in, because that eventually means khasira dunya wal akhirah, that will lose out in this world and also in the hereafter. So one of those important topics that's related to this discussion of identities is that and this is a very tangible discussion, is that look, because of these changes in our identity which have happened, so a lot has changed and things are changing fast, and we should be aware and alert. Our eyes should be open. One of the things that's happening is that because we allowed all these three identities to weaken, and I clearly mentioned yesterday that on all three fronts we are becoming weak in terms of our identity. So I mentioned that Khoja identity has been becoming weaker. Of course, this is not the time to discuss. This is not the, I mean, our topic is not this. Otherwise, it would be interesting to discuss that what elements of Khoja identity should be preserved, what need reform, and how we should do it. That's a separate topic. But generally, this what's happening. Islamic identity, as I mentioned, that we might have, and we as a community we have a very we tend to have a very limited benefit from Islam. We just confine it to the mosque and Imambara and religious, like very strictly religious programs, while Islam has a lot to offer. So that needs a bit of change. And also our African identity, living in Africa and not being connected to the place there is not a very healthy thing. So that also has weakened. So what that does is that because we have allowed our identities to weaken, it makes our new generation vulnerable, and they are quite vulnerable right now. So I come to you with this course and discussion called Battle of Minds and Hearts, Our Children and the Modern World. So literally our children are going through, the children of our community and even your children. So those of you who, inshallah, in future, may Allah grant you all the blessings that He has. When you'll have children, they'll be facing these same problems that modern world is going to have a lot of influence on them. So let me begin my discussion. You may wonder that where is the modern world in our community in Africa? Modern world is in UK, is in America, is in Canada. We are here in Africa and our community, it's not affected by the modern world. The answer is that no. Modern world is everywhere today in the world. It's not a phenomena that's limited to one country, one location, Western Europe or America. No, it's there everywhere, and it's quite prominently there in Africa as well. Question: where does modern world come into our societies and into our communities? It comes from two different entry points. So you can see on the screen, there are two ways or two places of entry of the modern world which intersects with our lives. One is that social systems of the modern world are already there in our community and in Africa. So educational systems that we send our children through are completely modern. Media that we consume is completely modern. Economic system that runs the most countries in Africa, so even Tanzania, Kenya, these different countries are very, very heavily capitalistic, the dominant economic system in the world. So modern world is here right at our doorstep. So we shouldn't think that, oh, we are going to be saved from the negative influences of the modern world. And this is a topic in itself, of course, not for here, but I would really urge I really urge the respected listeners to go through this topic called Understanding the Modern World. So this is an important topic that we need to deal in its own place. But there's another entry point for modern world to come and influence us. And believe me, it's right at our doorsteps. And now with the advancement of technology, it's even entered the most private spaces. So it's in our bedrooms, it's in our kitchens, it's there in the most private spaces that we can imagine. So media, technology, art, culture, movies, clothing, and a whole lot of other products are already there. And believe me, these things, when they are there, they're going to affect children more than other people. Why? Because children take a lot of influence from things surrounding them. So this is where these things enter. And let me say this here, that we are more affected than the local African communities. Okay, so we as the Hoja Shia Ithna Shari community, we live in Africa in different countries. The influence modern world has, the negative parts as well affects us more than the local Africans. Why? Because of three reasons. One, financial prosperity. Our communities are financially more prosperous than other local African communities. And when you have financial prosperity, you can afford a lot more luxuries, a lot more of these products of the modern world. Technology is easy to access, media is easy to access. That's something which is happening. So that's one thing. The second thing, our Indian roots make it a bit more vulnerable. It's a long story, but as Indians, we lived under colonial administration for a very long period of time, and that makes us a kind of easy targets, whereby we easily tend to accept the things that come from the modern world. Sometimes even people have this sense of and think that anything that comes from the modern world, from the West, has to be good. So sometimes it happens that people shut their brains and stop analyzing and just accept whatever is the dominant trend. So it's a risky thing. And the last thing, again, it's a topic of I really feel for this topic, is that one of the things that makes us more vulnerable to the negative influence of the modern world is the language change. And I say that probably this is the biggest factor. And I have been speaking about this whenever I get an opportunity, that probably this is one of the biggest change that has happened in the Hoja Shia Ithna Shari community living in Africa, that we have lost our ethnic local languages. Believe me, Gujarati and Kutchi is gone to a good extent. We have adapted English as the main language, even inside our houses for our private communications that we have. And once you change the language, and English being the language of the modern world, be ready for a lot of influence. And people who are going to be affected the most are the children. So let's imagine a child growing up in East Africa. Okay. So now this child who's growing up, and I'm talking about children of our own community. So maybe your younger brother, maybe your own children, maybe the children of the community that you see around, they are connected to a variety of places that shape them. So there are many, many factors that have a role in the tarbiyah and shaping the personality of the child. So what are these? I'm going to list them, and then we're going to discuss the places where that negative influence is coming. So family is an important factor, family system. And we as Khojas, we have a mixed family system. Our family systems are modern, religious, traditional. It's a combination of these all three. Community is an important place that has a lot of impact. And by community, I mean the Jamaat that we have, where people come and gather and they have different activities. Okay. Educational system is a very, very important player, and I'm going to speak about it in shaping the personality of the child, and a lot of negative influence is coming from here. Global media system is a very important player that shapes the personality of the child. And of course, there are local factors like the country in which you live, the economic, political, cultural system that is there. So a child growing up in EA is caught between these five things, and he's taking a lot of influence from these five places, and that's what shapes his personality. That's what does his tarbiyah and brings him up. Okay. So where is the negative influence coming to the children? And I don't know if you would even agree to this, and you would, but I feel very strongly that our children are facing a lot of negative influence from the modern world. Okay. Question: why is this influence there? And it's so much, and it's more for our community than, for example, the local African Shias. They're not so much affected by the negative things of the modern world. And what are those negative things? I'm going to point to them. So there are 3 points of entry, or 3 reasons that we are being affected. First is, or 3 places where are we being affected. First is the educational system, schools. Even our own schools, and I'm going to speak about this, that something happens there whereby these children learn wrong things there. They learn wrong values, wrong morals they learn in that system. Why? I'm going to explain. So this is one place of a negative influence on children, and quite an important one. I know some of you are going to be a bit critical. Oh, yeah, yes, our own Al Muntazir school, for example, or for example the other story, of course blame, you're trying to blame someone that, oh, it's your fault, it's your fault. No, as a community we need to find a solution. If we see a problem, doesn't matter that like it's not a blame game that I'm trying to blame you, it's because of you, or you're trying to blame me, it's because of me. No, we have a collective duty to fix problems if we are seeing these problems happening. So this is one place of influence. The other place of influence, quite powerful, is media products. And believe me, these are, if I use the word destroying our children, I wouldn't have exaggerated. It's very, very strong thing, independent thing that's out there, and especially children who can, and they are attracted to these media things. It's a risky thing if not controlled and if not managed. So these two things, and there's a third thing that is a prominent factor in this thing, that our children are being affected by the modern world negatively, and that is that, I'm very, very sorry to say, but parents of our community are not at all equipped to approach the tarbiyah of their children. They don't know how to go about it, especially with all these modern influences coming. They have no idea. They don't know how Islam, for example, approaches tarbiyah. What are those Islamic principles of tarbiyah? And it's very easy to see, right? And ask you to do this. That I don't know how many of the people who are listening to me, my respected audience, how many of them are married. But if you go and do a survey in our community and ask people how many of parents, those who have married and their children, or those who are going to have children, you go and do a survey in your community and ask them how many of you have done a proper, long, detailed course on Islamic tarbiyah. I can guaranteedly say that it won't be even 10%. Okay. Because tarbiyah and training and bringing up children is not something which we know automatically. And tarbiyah doesn't mean to just give them material facilities and leave them at the mercy of the ruthless material world, which is going to take them here and there, take them to desires and other crazy things. No, tarbiyah is a process. It needs to be learned. It doesn't happen automatically. Parents are not born to know the principles of tarbiyah. No, we need to take our time and know these things. So these are the three places where a lot of influence is coming. So what I'm going to do is I don't have much time because these sessions are short. So, and inshallah, I would like to keep time. I'll keep last 10 minutes for question and answers. I'm going to very briefly show you that how much influence is coming through these two things, the educational system and media products. So educational system, and by educational system, I mean the school. Okay, so there's a question: how do we access this long, proper, detailed course on tarbiyah from EA if you don't have living income? Thank you for. Okay, it's not a luxury so much to live in Com. There's a very easy way out there. Is that find a scholar who knows, who studied tarbiyah and how to do the tarbiyah of children from Islamic. Invite him for his regular tabligh. And for example, this happens, right? Like month of Ramadan, you invite a scholar for 15 days. Let him come, let him do the regular programs. On the side, ask him to do like 10 hours of course on tarbiyah for you. It's very easily doable. I'll help in this. I'll personally help in making this available to. Look, we have all the material resources to organize this. It's not a difficult thing, right? You can easily call a scholar who has worked on this topic, who's kind of an expert in this, and he'll run you through, for example, 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours of Islamic tarbiyah. There's also online resource available. Although I am personally a fan of online things, because it limits the educational experience by a big margin. So so again, I'm so one of the sisters mentioned that there is a course offered by Sheikh. He was a good friend of mine in when he was there. Is in Dar es Salaam. So he's worked on these topics related to therapy. So I'm saying that he's available, benefit from it. So in Dar es Salaam, even individual, let's say it's difficult to organize a class. So what you do is that parents go to take time from him and say that please can you give us 4 hours of your time and just basically just a no private class. Why not? If you need and if it's so important in today's day and age and the future and salvation of my child is dependent on this, I should feel in a collective thing. Even maybe later on WhatsApp group, I'll share resources that are the bottom line is that school is a place where a lot of negative influence is coming. So let's first come and see what is a school. Sometimes we think that school is the place where, but this is a very, very simplistic understanding of what a school and an educational system is. There's a lot of things that are going on in a school. Again, this is not my topic, so I'm just going to show you the list. So, school system or the educational system, the modern secular educational system, with which we have just copied from the modern, but these problems are there. So modern educational system comes with its own worldview, with its own values, with its own goals, limits the subjects which are taught. So, for example, religious topics don't have a place in the modern educational system. You have to somehow force it in the curriculum. That's what happens, right? Like in the regular school studies, religious studies are not so important. Then you just on the side you have it. It has its own morals. It has its own school culture, and believe me that the school culture that comes with this modern educational system, especially in East Africa, especially in those very high end elite schools, the English schools, the international schools, or even our own school, is a very toxic culture. It's not a healthy culture out there. And I'm sure all of you, many of you have gone through the system, you know how it works. I don't need to give examples. You know that how things work. Teach explaining this a lot, but I'm trying to say that school or modern educational system is a complete package. It's not just you go there, you learn these topics and come back home. A lot more happens there. Our children's tarbiyah, a part of it happens in school, and I emphasize the prominence and importance of this because most time after family, right? I mean, they spend a good 5, 6, 7 hours of their time in school, and school is not just close their eyes to everything, the school culture, how people are dressed, how people behave with each other, and you just go close your eyes and study and come back. No, it doesn't happen. School is a place where there are interactions, there's communication, there's a culture, there are values, there are morals, there are etiquettes that are being observed, right and wrong. It's a package that comes, that is there. So it shapes them at two different levels. It shapes their values and morals, their etiquettes, and sometimes you see these very strange things, and I'm going to give examples that have unfortunately come in the children of our community, and these are not very healthy morals and etiquettes that are out there. Where do they get them from? A good portion they get them from the educational system, and then the media is always there to supplement it and complement it and make things worse at times. Educational system also comes with a certain worldview. It changes people's belief about realities of life and how they should approach different things in their life. So I'm going to give you very brief examples of how the school system affects these things. So let me give you a few examples of values of the modern world in school. Okay. Again, I'm not generalizing this. I'm not saying that all the schools across all the countries in the modern world are like this, but this is a general trend. And especially if you're not careful, if the managers of the school, if those people responsible for running the school, if they're not careful, these negative values and negative morals and negative akhlaq can come in the school, and the children catch it very fast. Okay, let me give you a few examples of those negative influences of the modern world that come in our children through the school. It's a very strange process, right? Who would have thought that through the school, which we spend so much money, so much infrastructure to create it, it's one of the places that we are facing a challenge. So let me give a few examples. So one of the things that happens in the school is that education, and by that I mean the regular secular education, getting a degree, getting a bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, it becomes the paramount value. Then because they go through the system, they spend 6 7 8 hours there every single day they're told in the school, outside the school, that look, education is very important, education is very important, and it is indeed important. I'm not trying to downplay the importance of education, but the question is it even more important than anything in the world, even our duty to Allah, even Islam, even our social responsibility? Are we ready to sacrifice everything just for this idea of education? Of course, we know this is not a right idea. We need to give everything its due place. Education in its own place is extremely important, but it doesn't replace other important things in our life. So, for example, our connection with Allah, our connection with our Deen, with the Ahlul Bayt is also important in its own place. So it's something that we cannot replace. But the school, someone said that the sound is lost. Just want to make sure that the sound is still there. Just want to check. Can most people hear me? I think they should be, right? Because otherwise everyone would have said it. I just need a confirmation that people can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So this is one of the things that happens in school, that there's so much emphasis. So emphasis on education is good, but when you overemphasize something, it leads to an imbalance in that child's mind. So he starts thinking that, oh, namaz, ibadat, these things are not so important. Eventually, what matters is my education, my degree. No, this is not the value that we want to bring up our children with, right? We need to put everything in its own place. Let's go to some other examples of values that come through the school. So, opposite gender relationships are normalized in school, and that's the environment that happens. Again, I'm not pointing to specific schools. Schools are different. So, maybe in some of the schools in our community, we might have gender segregation, which might limit this thing. But in other places where because the modern world tells us, right, that in the regular setting of the modern educational system, there's no gender segregation. It's not allowed. It's not seen as a positive thing. They go against it. They said no gender segregation. But when if we just copy the modern system, then what's going to happen is that these opposite gender relationship, the haram ones, okay, and there are boundaries to it. So there's a halal way to interact with the opposite gender, but there are a good number of ways of haram and detrimental and harmful interactions with the opposite gender that are out there. These things now slash cool thing that, oh cool, he has a girlfriend, for example. So, and these things can start seeping into the values of our own children. And you might have seen examples of children from our own community who have internalized these values, and they have completely accepted that, yeah, a boy who can't make relationship with girls is like, he's not so cool, he's a studious, that bhola kind of a boy. So these perceptions are shaped in the school and the environment that it comes with. Many other things, people are drawn into addictions in the school, and it becomes a really, really big problem. And it is a problem out there. I mean, I have heard, I mean, you probably have more information than me, but for example, in Dar es Salaam, drug abuse, substance abuse, these kind of things are there. And the root of these things many a times is in the school. So in the school, bad friendship, and these things become normalized. Like and why am I saying it's a value thing? Because as Muslims, And as intellectual people, we are supposed to stay away from these kind of bad things, from smoking, from drugs, from these other things. And we naturally, through our fitra, we dislike these things because these are addictions. We don't like to go near them. But in school, these values are changed upside down. They are normalized, and people think that what's the big deal, it's okay to have. In fact, sometimes they attach a lot of pride to these kind of things. Someone who's smoking is seen as like a brave kind of a person, and drug abuse is considered dashing and someone who has a lot of courage, while that's not the case. So these wrong values, this is another problem that I saw this a lot, and it was really, really, to be very honest, annoying for me that this has seeped into our children: excessive insultive joking. So basically, too much joking with each other within friends. Yes, joking is good, but it has limit. So we have in our riwayat that excessive joking brings down a person's value, and it leads a person to haram. And that's what happens, right? That if I keep joking too much, yes, a part of it, it's like salt in food, right? That we need a bit of salt in our day-to-day life just to enjoy our lives, and that's the jokes we have with each other. It's good to have, but if you put too much salt in food, it becomes a mess, right? And that's what we see. Where is it coming from? The source is the school culture. It's the school culture that promotes this idea of being very cool, able to joke at every single time. But everyone is not so creative in joking. So there are people who always get insulted in these kind of settings, and it has a lot of negative impact on their personality. And it's a bad thing, right? We all know that. Then these kind of things, being overtly expressive, show off, flaunting beauty, all these kind of wrong values. A part of it, I'm not blaming the school entirely, but a good influence comes from the school culture. And believe me, our children take a lot from what happens at school. So it also affects their worldview. I'm not focusing on this part too much because it needs a lot of explanation. I'm just going to show you a few things that I'll just read them. So it slowly and gradually changes their perception about different things in life. So the school experience changes their perception about meaning of success, perception about many topics, God and his role in life, human reality, life after death, role of religion in community and society, role of women in the society. Again, it's a long story. I won't go into it. That slowly and gradually, even school starts shaping our mindset and how we think and how much of importance we give to these different things and how we perceive things. So, because my time is limited, I'll just quickly move on to the second topic. I still have a bit of time to complete before I can leave time for question and answers. The second place where the negative influence, because this is our topic, right, that the children of our community in the modern world and where this influence is coming, and we are having this discussion because we want to control it, we want to solve it, we need to manage these negative influences that are coming. And media products, ila mashallah, there are so many, and each single day you have a new media thing coming, from social media to internet to movies to TV to TikTok to YouTube to Instagram. There are so many avenues whereby these media products are thrown in large quantities at our children, and especially speak about social media. So a lot of negative influence comes from there, and I just want to point out at a few of them very, very briefly, maybe in a matter of few minutes. So first thing, and the first negative influence that media has on our children is that it destroys their time, it reduces their productivity, and a good amount of time people and our children spend in media, and by media I mean everything: TV, movies, social media, browsing on the internet, random browsing, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and come on, I don't even know the other things that are out there. Like, so although I know them, I don't think so that I'm unaware of what's going on. And all those different things, Snapchat and Facebook and everything that goes on, it takes a lot of their time. It turns them into, I'm sorry to use these words, lazy, unproductive beings. Like, it takes away that productivity in their life. And so they're exposed to not beneficial and probably harmful content on social media, things which are not right for them. it's addictive. So one of the aspects of why is it so time consuming, because these things are addictive: movies, TV series, and probably the worst of all are the computer games. They're probably the most addictive. It takes away a lot of time. Of course, how we should approach it and how parents should control these things, again, you'll have to call a scholar who's expert in these matters and ask him. He'll explain you that, look, when it comes to media and your children, this is how you deal with it, how much you allow, what type you allow, because we're not even saying that completely shut off people and children to media. It's not possible and practical in today's day and age. It needs to be managed, but how, that's not our topic. And just telling you that, look, a lot of influence is coming, so these things are addictive and they're very distractive. So they distract our children from a lot of other beneficial activities, especially their studies. So it's like it's very contradictory. We want them to get best education, we send them in best schools, we spend money, but they're exposed to so much media that it starts affecting their education negatively. So that's something that we need to be careful as well. So this is an important thing, right? Amirul Mominin says, Umrul mar'i la qimatala. There's nothing more valuable than my umr, my lifespan. And when you see the children of our community wasting time like anything on these unproductive, unnecessary, and probably harmful activities, you really feel bad. They could have done so much more. They could have contributed so much more. They could have learned a certain skill. They could have given out to the community, volunteered. But these things, you'll see that they're going to reduce. Why? Because that's what, if media is let uncontrolled in the lives of our children, that's what it does. It takes away a lot of their time. So the second influence that comes with the media, and I'll probably finish in around 5-7 minutes, and then inshallah I'll have even time, a bit of time, although not much, for question and answer. That, and this is a big problem that's going to come, and it's going to bite us. Again, I'm sorry, I'm being very frank with you, because I'm sure that we are on the same page. We understand each other. We have the same concerns. We feel and care for our community, our children, and even our own children will have to go through this. So I'm saying some things which are very, very blunt. That, look, these are serious things, that excessive exposure and uncontrolled exposure to media leads to emotional and mental issues. So all of you know this idea of mental health is becoming a big thing in around the world today. Why? Because media is producing a lot of mental and emotional issues, and now people are realizing that we need to fix them. I mean, I can't keep living like this. So things like, so there are studies being done that media, excessive use of media, is linked to stress, anxiety, and even depression. Okay, so this is a reality out there. Media is linked to excessive use of media, especially social media, especially internet, is linked to poor relationship and decrease in social skills. Like, I mean, our children are so much on the social media and they're so disconnected from real one-on-one relationships, that when you send them to another place in front of the elders, they don't know how to behave. I mean, they don't have those social interaction skills with different people. How do they behave with their siblings who are elder? How do they behave with the elders of the community? How do they behave with the parents, with the friends of the parents? I mean, be ready for a lot of these introvert kids who run away from social interactions. Why? Because excessive use of media does that. Excessive use of media is linked to poor performance in education and cognitive tasks. Come on, these media products, if not controlled, they take away a lot of your potential. You can't think properly, you can't analyze properly, you can't study properly, and a lot of other emotional and mental and even social issues that it creates. So this is another thing. And the third influence, and again, this is, all of these are important, and this is probably one of the most dangerous places that is out there. And we need to have our eyes open, that our children need to be aware of this. Okay. I'll just take a 1 minute break, because my battery is low, and if I don't connect to my charger, I mean, I might be disconnected. So give me a moment. I'll just take a minute to just put my laptop on charge. So in the meantime, you can start keep thinking about the things I've been saying. So, and recite a salawat as well. Okay, so I'm back again. So the third influence that we see from the modern world is that our children, through media, are exposed to a lot of haram. And again, what does haram mean? So haram means that those actions that are going to mess up his dunya and akhirah both. So these haram actions and acts are both detrimental in our life in this dunya. They cause a lot of problems. So I just mentioned mental issues, psychological issues, social issues. Allah has made these things haram because they are bad for us, even in this material world. And at another level, they destroy the soul. So they take these children away from Allah. These children who have this pure fitra, who could have gone so close to Allah, it stops them. It kind of puts them in an endless pursuit of these haram desires, whereby they can't come out. It's a dangerous thing that's out there. So media. So I'll just give a few examples. Media encourages relationships with namahram. I mean, you know this very very clearly that this is what is happening. Media has explicit haram content. We all know that this is a big problem out there. Media is a platform for a large number of sins, especially social media. We need to be very careful that again we need to teach our children how to use it properly, and at what age should we give them access to. These are all important tarbiyah questions. So backbiting, lying, spreading false rumors, jealousy, foul language, making fun of others, joking about Islam and personalities related to religion, etc., all of this goes on internet, social media. If someone just gets free access, he'll be exposed to all of this. Okay, maybe for an adult to be exposed to some of these things. For example, he opens a web page and sees that, oh, there are people making fun of Islam. He would be able to manage it, handle it. But children, no. They're going to be affected if they have such uncontrolled interaction with the media. So my last slide, and that is the biggest pain I have and that I want to share, is that given such a situation where our children are being influenced in the educational system through schools and through media, and it's increasing every single day, what saddens me is that in such a situation, parents are so ill equipped to deal with tarbiyah, unfortunately, in our own community. And as I mentioned, that probably 90% wouldn't have done even a small short course on Islamic tarbiyah. I can guarantee that to you. So much negative influence coming. Parents have no idea what's happening. It's a perfect recipe for disaster. So, and I just want to read this very beautiful. I have 3 minutes before the last 10 minutes. So, this is a very beautiful letter, and I recommend all of you. In fact, I would say that just call a scholar to do a tafsir of this letter of Amirul Mu'minin. So, this is a letter of Amirul Mu'minin. He writes to Imam al Hassan, according to some reports, Muhammad bin Hanafiya, his son, and he gives out all detailed instructions of tarbiyah in this letter. It's an amazing, amazing piece, but of course, it requires sharh and explanation. So, in one part of this, Amirul Mu'minin is teaching us actually. He doesn't need to teach tarbiyah to Imam al Hassan, he's ma'soom. He's teaching us. He says, Innama kalbul hadath kal ardil khaliya. Heart of a child is like an empty land. Ma ulkiya fiya min shay'in kabilathu. Whatever you sow in that empty land, it accepts. Then he says, فَبَادَرْتُ بِالْأَدَبِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَقْسُوا كَالْبُكْ. And because I know that how sensitive hearts of children are, their personalities are, I decided to give you the best of manners and etiquettes and adab before your heart hardens. And that's a risk that we have, right? That if children are exposed to too much sins, too much ideological doubts, too much of these media products, their hearts can harden. And then it might become too late to save them. And they said, وَيَشْتَغِلُّ لُبُّكَ. So their minds will be occupied, their hearts will be hardened if they go on the wrong path. And this is something which is very dangerous, and that is something that we need to be. What's the solution? Two things: strong families, and we need to improve our schools. Okay, because my time is up. Really, I feel this, that if you want to save our next generation, and those are the ones that are going to take the lead, right? Our generation will leave this world. Who's going to take over? It's our children, the next generation. So if we don't think about this, and at individual and community level, so this is something that needs to be handled at both levels. All of us as individuals need to make sure that our families are strong. Anything that we do to strengthen families, to equip parents with the tools of tarbiyah, teach them how to control media, is a great service, and it's something that we all need to go through. And we need to fix our schools. And it's the duty of the community. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. We're all together. We're in the same boat. That if this boat is going to sink, we're all going to sink. So there's no point blaming each other. Oh, this committee made a mistake and that's why the schools have become like this. No, we can stop the blame game. We come together as a community and those who are concerned, and see that how can we fix the problems that are coming from the school culture. How can we make it more Islamic? The values that are taught in the school, what can be done? We can't just let things go the way they are. So I thank you all for your time and patience, because it's very close to iftar time. And thank you for coming to this session, because it's like it's the most difficult part of the day, right? Just before adhan and iftar. So thank you again for your patience and time. I have 10 minutes, roughly 10 minutes, 9 minutes to be precise. And the floor is open. So Bismillah, if you have any questions, any comments to make. So this was my entire presentation, and I just wanted to express this concern that, look, these influences are coming, and we have the answers. We just need to take steps to correct that the way it is. So probably there are people commenting there, so I'll read the comments. So one of the brothers wrote, I have configured my social media account such as Instagram to be a source of news and knowledge for me. It's a medium to access information in English and Farsi from reliable sources. But it took a painstakingly long time to get to this point, still falling in pitfalls now and then. Is it still justified for me to use social media? Even a possibility of committing a silly sin, but still a great danger. So I think this is what we all need to do, that we need to carefully define our relationship, even as adults. So for children, definitely. And of course, how do you manage these things with children is a topic in itself. We need to ask the experts that children's contact with media, what age should it begin, in what format, in what progression. I can't give my 7-year-old daughter an iPad and tell her an internet and say that, okay, look, you're free to do whatever. No, it's highly dangerous. We need to define the stages. So that's the topic. But even for our own selves, this is what we all need to do. We need to define our relationship with social media and other forms of media in a careful, intelligent way, whereby it's not time consuming and it stops us and stops the negative influence, and it lets we benefit from the positive. So yeah, so I would say that yes, this is a good thing. We shouldn't cut off our relationship with social media fully, because it's a place which aware of the world and what's happening around, and we stay in touch with people. So basically there's no other solution than to define a correct relationship with the social media, how much time I'm going to spend in what social media platforms. I don't have to be everywhere, and then just manage it and just be constantly being careful. And possibility of a sin is there everywhere anyway, so it doesn't tell us that okay, we should shut down to everything because there's a ihtimal and possibility of sin. No, we take logical decisions, Islamic decisions. We try our best, and then inshallah Allah will definitely help when we if inadvertently, without wanting, we enter a situation that's a bit shaky and risky. So basically it comes down to managing it wisely. Of course, how we manage it needs guidance, and we should discuss about this more, of course, in another thing. So So there are questions coming, and I'm happy to see that questions are coming, because questions mean that this discussion was able to make you involved in the discussion, like you're part of it. So I really appreciate questions. Of course, we won't have time to answer all of them, but I request all of you that any comments you have, that please do type them. If not here, then in the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp groups will be active for at least some time. Any questions, any comments will be really appreciated, and it will be it will help us to even discuss more. So far I have a few questions from one of the sisters. So let me just read the question and then see if I have time to answer them. So I have 6 minutes and I'll end on time, because even here it's probably iftar time in 6 minutes, so I can't continue more than that anyway. So I'll have to. Okay, so first question is, what is the age where we can give children phones in today's time, where school has their work done online and also activities done online? So this is a very specific tarbiyah question, and I would just answer it very briefly. But I would highly recommend, and this is one message that this entire lecture has. If I was able to convey, then that would be a big achievement. Is that, brothers and sisters, we need to have an expert, an Islamic expert, come over to us and teach us these things. And experts are there. If you're not finding one, tell me, I'll find one for you. But again, the initiative has to come from your side, right? That it's a need that people have, communities have. They get together, 5, 10, 15 people, say that, okay, let's organize this. People have to do it. We shouldn't. And again, this is sometimes it's sad, right? We wait for Tabligh committee to do, Jamaat to do, them to take initiative. They should do their duty and they should organize these things, and they try, and they're trying, but we shouldn't wait for them to organize something. Why not a few of us get together and just organize something, so many people will benefit? Very briefly, the answer to this thing is, it depends on a lot of things. So if you're in a setting where the school work has to be done online, then it's not recommended to give them. So basically, the principle is this: delay their full access to internet and social media as much as possible. That's one principle to keep in mind. Secondly, this access has to be limited and gradual. So what you would do, that at the age where they now have to access school material online, probably it's a good idea to have your device being used at those times. Maybe initially it's not a good idea to just buy a device and give them. Why? Because that sense of ownership of a new device, it probably will lead them to spend too much time with it. So basically, they would know, and I do with my children. So COVID, this happened, right? So my daughter is 7 years old, and a part of their thing was online here. So what you do, I have a tablet. So I tell her, she doesn't own a phone. She's 7 years old. I just tell her that, look, this is my tablet. And during your school hours, when you have to do the online class, I'll set up your class on my tablet. And as soon as you finish, I mean, it finishes and the tablet comes back to me. So there are principles to keep in mind, and the exact age can be slightly different based on your situation, but the thumb rule is that delay it as much as possible. The access should be limited, and it has to be gradual. It has to be done slowly and gradually. So of course we can ask for more advice on people who have more expertise and experience in this topic. How do you stop children from watching the Western minded superhero kind of animation? Is educational forms of social media okay when they ask for it? They're facing peer pressure from as young as 4 or 5 years old when they start preschool. It's a challenge. Yes, I would completely agree that it's a challenge. And as it is with any challenge, we need to manage it. And as I mentioned, we need to follow these principles, that we need to delay their contact with these kind of things. One, we need to monitor the content. And when I say monitor, it doesn't mean that, oh, you kind of spying on them. No, you need to guide them, that they themselves are guided to the right content. So this is a duty of the parents. They need to identify the right content for the right age that they can access. We can't just let them watch anything and everything that comes on TV and YouTube. So probably you'll have to create a bank of cartoons and things that they're allowed to watch. And even communication is key, that after a certain age, you can talk to them that, look, certain things it's not okay to watch. We care for you, we love you, there might be bad things in it. They won't understand it fully, but you need to even communicate with them. So if we combine these three strategies together, delay as much as possible whenever possible, and you're going to face, it's a challenge. Why? Because there'll be peer pressure and other things. So their access must be limited. So don't buy them all these fancy gadgets and tell them that you own it. No, it's not a good idea. uh, so limit their access both in terms of owning it, owning that device, and also in terms of content. So limited access. Third is content needs to be monitored, and fourth thing is communication. So if you combine these four principles, it will give you a good fair judgment of what to do when. And this is how tarbiyah works, right? Islamic tarbiyah is not set in stone that okay, at this age and this day you do it and that's it. No, it will give you principles, strategies. It will give you practical ways of dealing with it, and then you have to be that smart, active parent who can use these principles and deal with your child, because each child is unique and you need to take care of a lot of things. So probably that would be a brief answer. This is one thing. Should we expose our children to fantasy like dragons, magic, mermaids, unicorn, superpowers? Okay, this is a topic in itself. Uh, I'll just say one line because my time is up. Probably if I get a chance, we can even ask those people who have worked more on this field. Probably I can even try and answer on the WhatsApp group with a bit more detail. What the scholars of Islamic Tarbiyah say is that uh, imaginary stories, some amount of imagination is good for children. So Islam doesn't say that you only tell them real stories. In fact, they say that it's not a good idea to introduce very young children to real stories too early. No, initially they need to satisfy their imagination. They need to work with that. So imaginary stories are good, but things that go into crazy imagination like magic and fantasy, one. So this is that crazy imagination that it's too bizarre and too weird. So at one time you have imaginary story where there's a king, then there's a queen, and there's something happens. That's a regular imagine. It's not a real story, but it's very interesting. So that kind of imaginary stories is fine, but crazy imagination like fantasy, magic is not healthy. It's detrimental. So it's better to avoid. And the other thing is that if these imaginations are accompanied with hidden messages and symbols. So for example, I don't have time. Unicorns have a very strong symbolization in the modern world. We need to speak about it. So I'm saying summarize. Imagination is good for children. Imaginary stories, they need to go through that phase where they have a full blast of imagination. Imaginary stories, they're thinking, they're imagining, but we need to take care that these two things are avoided: crazy imagination like fantasy and magic, and imagination that comes with hidden messaging, like for example unicorn. So of course we need to see which of these have strong hidden messaging or not, but it's a topic that can be pursued. So I can see that all of you have so many tarbiyah questions. So I'll definitely recommend you all to go through a proper full course on Islamic tarbiyah, and there's a lot out there. You and we all need to seek it. So I thank you for your time. My time is up. Inshallah, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is my last session, that you'll keep me in your du'as and forgive me for any shortcomings that would have been there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ahsan Sheikh, thank you for the amazing talk. I'm sure everyone loved the discussion, and we would love to continue. As you see, the questions are flowing in, but inshallah, if any of you have any other questions, please feel free to send the messages on the group. The group are going to stay active. Please don't leave the group, because the quiz details will be sent on the group. Secondly, we have our third course, which is a 2-hour course, which you can see shared on your screen. You still have time to register for it, so please take time and register for this course, inshallah. There's another a few announcements we need to give. There's a next poster, if it can be shared. Yes, this is the next poster. We have the Rube Goldberg. Inshallah, there are good prizes to be won, which is $350, $250. This is a good time for family to come together and think or make something creative, which is good for the children. Sheikh can confirm. It's exploring creative parts of their brain, inshallah. The next is the magazines. I'm sure you've all seen the AYN magazines, which will also be having a quiz after a Kahoot. So inshallah, you can pick these magazines from your Jamaat, your local Jamaat, the reps of AYN, which are readily available, inshallah. And lastly but not least is there's a course, a pre-university course, which is held by AFTAB AY and AYN Educational Board. Inshallah, please, if you are also a person who's getting into university or know someone, please encourage them to register for this course, as it's very beneficial for them, inshallah. With that, yes, those are the announcements, inshallah. Thank you, Sheikh, very much for your time, and the participants for your time. Inshallah, have a good iftar and a good Ramadan, inshallah, for the Hafiz.
Thank you, Jazakallah.